But we don't know if they have an armory or where it even is.
Well, we got a lot of good guesses. We've done more with less.
We go in at night while they're sleeping.
Guards won't be sleeping. Like I said, I think there's only one way in, and there's no way to bust through that door without waking up the rest of them.
We don't need to. They're gonna open it for us. Let us walk right in. They want Gregory's head, right? We're gonna give it to him.
And hello and welcome everybody to Sound Off with Sinkoff. I am so excited to be joined by Jeremy Palko, who played Andy in The Walking Dead. Jeremy, welcome to Sound Off with Sinkoff.
Thanks for having me. That was fun. Memory lane type stuff, yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, there are so many memorable scenes in The Walking Dead, and you were a part of one of them. And that is the scene where you're holding up this head and you're outside of Rick's base and
Negan's base.
Rick's base. Negan's base, and you're enticing him saying, hey, we did what you wanted us to do. How does it feel to be part of that scene? We'll get into all the other stuff in a minute, but just talk about that iconic scene.
I mean, I guess at the time you don't realize how, the whole time I was there, I was like, this is so cool just to be here. But I do remember kind of like you would get your scripts kind of week to week kind of thing, and you just hope that you were at the end of every script. And I remember Stephen Yun had come up to me at a previous episode, and he'd actually said to me, he goes, man, that's really cool what you get to do next episode. And I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Are you sure, like, I'm the right guy? And he let me read a script, which I don't know if that was, taboo or not, but I read it, and I was like, all right, that's a pretty cool scene. But, yeah, when it came out, I was very happy that, there's so many characters in that show, obviously, and just to get on that show was amazing. But to have that moment of, of screen time was just a really, really cool feeling.
Jeremy, of course, played Andy, had some great scenes in The Walking Dead. He battled Abraham, a big dude, right? Daryl breaks your arm. You have the riff with Rick, ultimately end up sort of siding with them and going to Negan's base and holding up the head.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about your untimely death at the beginning of season 8. But first of all, Jeremy, tell us how you got started in acting. We're going to go back, and then we'll talk about Walking Dead and all your other projects and your artworks. So how'd you get involved in acting?
Well, I thought about that this morning, and I was like, when did I really get into acting? And I had to go all the way back. And I remember in third grade, I was in a terrible school production of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And I remember yelling a lot, but I had a lot of fun. And so from then on, and like every Indiana Jones movie as a kid, made me want to be in the movies somehow, some way. And I just kind of never thought that was possible. Like, I didn't know any actors. I didn't hang out with any actors. My sister was in the theater in high school and college, but that was it. And then I worked for, my dream was to work with Disney. And so I actually did an internship with Disney. I wound up working on a cruise ship at a job that I didn't really know what I was going to do. And it wound up being a very entertainment-led job of hosting deck parties and dancing like a pirate. And that really kind of got the acting bug. I had done some plays in college, but it didn't strengthen my love for the theater. It actually kind of terrified me, the thought of being in front of people. But again, Disney really kind of shaped me as an entertainer, and I did some work at Universal Studios for a while, and that's when I kind of started to pursue acting. I started to be an extra in movies. I was an extra in a movie called Sydney White with Amanda Bynes, and I was an extra in Magic Mike, and I worked next to Matthew McConaughey and Channing Tatum and Steven Soderbergh and Olivia Munn, and I remember I didn't do much. I sat on a beach throwing a football all day, but like watching them work, this became my classroom of just being an extra. I was an extra in probably like 50 or 60 commercials with, the Orlando community was, still to this day, a great group of actors, and you see them working all the time. But that was a fun education for me, and I got lucky enough to start. I got what I consider the best agent in the Southeast with Brevard Talent, and been with Tracy for a good 15 years now, and she's wonderful, and she gets me pretty good opportunities, and that's you're lucky enough to get them, the auditions, but to book anything is just kind of icing on the cake. So thus far been little part, and I can't complain, but I chose this profession and this road, so yeah.
Of course, Jeremy had parts in Pitch Perfect 3, The Passage, Unbreakable, Live to Tell, and MacGyver. And then you were in Tyler Perry's Ruthless as well, obviously, in addition to Walking Dead. That was a pretty cool gig, huh?
That was the coolest gig because it was during COVID. And so auditions were few and far between, and didn't even know a strike was on the horizon. But I remember getting the audition and a call from Tyler Perry's people, and they were like, hey, we want to cast you in like 26 episodes. So in my mind, I was thinking I'm going to be shooting for the next, year or so. Then I found out they shoot extremely fast. So it was kind of like this acting boot camp that, it was so much fun. Everybody was great, but I remember being completely stressed out, getting, pages upon pages of dialogue. I had probably 100 pages of dialogue, and I had like 4 days to prepare. And to me, that's like an actor's nightmare. I didn't sleep well. Yep. I was literally at the gym every day, only to walk on a treadmill and learn my lines. Like I printed out all the pages at Kinko's, and but I remember like Tyler Perry he was so much fun. And like I said, it was during COVID, so we stayed on property. So I got to stay at Tyler Perry's studios for 4 weeks, and like it was during COVID, so everyone had masks, and we were getting tested every like 3 days. And I just remember the food being amazing, people being amazing, and it was, such a great opportunity during a downtime for acting to just to really just work. It was a lot of fun.
Jeremy, one of the things that fascinates me about actors, and I don't think a lot of people realize this when they're watching a movie, but memorizing the lines and then making them feel like you're not acting. How tough is that to not only memorize your lines, and Tyler Perry, that may be an exception because you're crunching it, but like for The Walking Dead, like how much time do you have to learn those lines, and how the heck do you do that? I mean, can you ad lib, or it has to be exactly what is said?
I mean, well, that's debatable. Certain people are like, stick to the script. Certain people are very open. Really depends on your relationship with A, the director, B, the writer, and just if it makes sense for the character. But I would say, I mean, it's not easy. I'll start there. Like memorizing lines has always terrified me. I think most actors will agree to some degree that it's tough, but it's, sometimes, actors are very emotional people to begin with. I think it's, for me personally, acting becomes, a study of, people and trying to feel what, people feel in those moments. But, memorizing the lines is it's the first necessary step, but then you make it your own. And to anybody who thinks it's really difficult, I kind of say, tell me your favorite joke, and then tell me your favorite joke again. And then tell me your favorite joke. And you start to build these kind of like blocks in your head of like, this is the scene, this is the story, this is what makes sense to me. And if you can connect those dots with enough practice, for me, it's like I listen to it all day, every day. I will speak it into a recorder for like probably 20 minutes and then just let that play all day long. And I'll find myself almost like your favorite song. You're just kind of catching moments. And then I go back and reread it 100 times. And, that's within the first 48 hours. And if I don't have it kind of off book by then, I don't really deserve the part kind of thing. But really just time, practice, that's it. Like you can't, I mean, some people probably have, photographic, memories and can just read, and, I'm envious of those people, but I do know a lot of great actors out there that that struggle with that idea of, memorizing. But yeah, you want to get off book. You want to get rid of the script. That way, that's when you can start kind of playing. And, I equate it to painting a lot. Like it's never going to be what you want it to be. But what you do is you just keep going and see what comes out of it.
Jeremy Palko, we're speaking to. It's Sound Off with Sinkoff. It's sponsored by the Sinkoff Realty Group, full service real estate brokerage in Del Mar, New York, located just outside Albany, the capital region of New York. Jeremy, your first gig, your first speaking part was the movie Never Back Down.
It was, yeah.
2008. I did my research on it, man.
Yeah, nice job.
How'd you get that gig? Tell me about that.
That was
how
fun.
That happened.
So, like, I really had the acting bug hard. Like, I was on sets all the time. I was seeing people, all my friends that I was making, they were all working actors. And, like I said, I'd been an extra, but I, hadn't had dialogue in a movie. And so I remember my agent sent me, my first agent, wonderful agent, just moved on for her when I got bigger kind of parts out there. But I do remember going into the audition, and it was a football sequence. To anyone who's seen it, I played the running back in the first scene. And this was such a dream role because I'd played football my whole life, and I always kind of wanted to play sports in a movie. But I remember the audition was hilarious because clearly the script, it just didn't make sense. It was like a quarterback yelling out lines that a linebacker would say kind of thing. And so I kind of just spoke up. I said, hey, listen, am I playing the quarterback or the linebacker? And they said quarterback. And I said, okay. And they were like, what's wrong? And I said, just probably wouldn't say this. And they were like, well, what would he say? And I said, he would say things like, and I start barking out quarterback lines. And next thing you know, like, they're all talking amongst themselves, and we ran a couple scenes. But they looked baffled because they'd been in there all day, and nobody had said a word.
Right.
But they kept me there after a couple more people auditioned, and then they asked me about football, like real questions, like could I run, could I catch, could I pass? And I said, yes, I can do all that. And then it was like 2 days later, I went out with the stunt team, and we started playing football. And I was there with Jaimin Hansu was there, and, Amber Heard stopped by, and Cam Gigande, but all my fights were with Sean Ferris. And yeah, we just rehearsed, and I was there with three guys who they told me I was competing with, but at the end of the day, they were the stunt guys. Like, no, you're our guy. We're training you, our scenes.
Yeah.
Because on the day we shot, it was just 3 football scenes, and every time we ran it, I took real hits from real stunt guys. And I remember it being the time of my life. I had so much fun, and like the next 5 days, like my whole body was just black and blue. But
yeah,
that was. I remember going to the theaters too to watch it too, and my mom watched the whole movie and said, "Where were you?" I said, "Mom, I was in the first scene with the football helmet on."
That's funny. So you're in that movie. You obviously have a sports background. You're from the Seattle, Washington area, right? Went to University of Washington. You played sports in college, right? No?
Collegiately, I played lacrosse. I did a year and a half of a club sport because I wasn't good enough to make the football team. But that's when I actually, in high school, I wasn't great, but I wasn't terrible. I was planning on playing collegiate football somewhere. And then my third game of my senior year, blew out my knee kind of story. Then I went to college thinking I could continue to play sports, and I blew out my other knee. And that's actually when I took my first acting class, was after my second injury. So being devastated as I was, I look back and I was like, that was the biggest, fork in the road kind of moment in my life that let me know, hey man, sports are just not. I'm so happy, man. I watch like sports now, and I see guys getting leveled, and I'm like, I would be broken in half right now. So I'm okay with it.
Jeremy, what's the best part about acting? What do you love about it?
Man, it's the only thing that's ever really kept my interest. Like when I went to college, they always say find what you like and go for it. And a lot of people don't know what they want, you know. And I remember the first day I went to cinematic studies. I started learning about movies, and you know, I've always wanted to be a director, which I've actually just shot. I shot my first short film, and I've got a lot of cool friends to help me out. So we're in the editing process right now, looking for a sound mixer. But yeah, that always had my interest, and I never thought about being an actor. But you know, I just really enjoy it. And I think any actor will tell you that it's just you're a big kid and you get to play. You know, like I don't ever lose sight of just how fun it could be. I think the more I do it, the more I realize it's more therapeutic for actors than anything. It's quite literally, you know, just expressing yourself and putting yourself in other shoes, and you know, but ultimately it's just I love it. So
All right, so you get the spot in The Walking Dead, and I'm showing a shot here. You got that here on your screen, right?
yes, sir.
You and Jesus.
Jesus.
Not the biggest shot in the world. Awesome actor.
Oh, Tom, he's awesome.
Yeah. So, how did you get this gig? There you are with Rick.
You know, what's funny is
Andrew Lincoln.
I was living in Orlando at the time when it first came around, and it was called the zombie show, the Untitled Zombie Show, and I read for the first episode, and it was for a young police officer. And it's been a while, but I do remember watching that first episode and seeing the guy. He's like up against the fence.
Would have been with Shane, right?
I think it was Rick and Morgan.
Oh, Rick. Yeah, Rick in the beginning.
Yeah,
right.
there's
Yes.
that one cop that he kills on the fence post. And I remember auditioning for that. And I didn't get it, obviously. And the show went on to be a big hit. And then everybody in the Southeast knew what The Walking Dead was. Every time actors. And I got auditions. I was lucky enough to just continuously being seen is all you really want as an actor. So I read for this part and that part and this part and that part. And I had never really watched the show. I saw the first couple episodes and it was just kind of like, nah, I'm not into it. But then season 6 came around and castings went out and I read for this part. And I remember it was like a liquor store kind of hold-up scene. And like most auditions, you give them two different takes, and I try to give them something as different as possible, and then you try to forget about it as an actor. At least I try to. I don't try to, hold on to that idea that I might book it. And then one day I was working at a bar, and my boss knew that I was an actor, and he knew I'd read for the show, and he was a huge fan of the show. So I got the call, and I went in his office and said, "Hey, I won't be at work next week." And I told him, which I wasn't supposed to tell anybody really. But yeah, I went out. My agent was on the phone with me, and I kind of celebrated for a good moment. But then I got kind of like this wave of terror of like, man, now it's time to go. Like it's the big league. So I couldn't wait to get the script. I was in Orlando, like I said. I drove to Atlanta, and I was there for a few weeks shooting. And I remember leaving, and my character was still alive and well. So I was very hopeful for season 7.
So explain how that works. And here's you, Rick.
But it was wild. Like I said, I hadn't seen the show, and when I got cast, it was all available on like Netflix. So I watched 5 seasons in like a weekend. I mean, I just binged. So I literally went from reading the script to just watching the series. And then walking onto set, which was, kind of surreal in itself.
So you get the gig, and then how long do they give you the script and say you're coming out to Atlanta? Like, how did the genesis of that?
They usually give you a preliminary script and a shoot schedule of like what days you need to be there. And in my case, they needed, my hotels they provided, which is nice. And, It was just really, a lot of fun. But, yeah, you just wait around for the script. And then you start memorizing as best you can. And, yeah, me personally, I like to get there as soon as possible. I'll be the first one on set, Like, I really enjoy being there, so.
So you were in how many episodes total? 4?
5. I did,
5, okay.
Yeah, 2 in season 6, 2 and 8, and then there was 1 in season 7. Yeah.
And you you had an untimely death, right? What was that, in season 8?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I remember we'd all come back. You know, it was kind of like summer camp. Hi, buddy. My dog's waking up. It was kind of like summer camp. You know, like they were, shooting episode 1, and episode 1 was actually the 100th episode of the show. And I remember it was like the best summer camp ever. There was like 100 of us, like for a week and a half. We all went hiking and we went out to dinners and we were shooting all day. And then we got into like episode 2, and that's when like the phone calls started going out of like, did you get a call? Did you get a call? Did you get a call?
Oh.
And that was Scott Gimple letting people know that the casualties are about to start happening in the Negan war. And good old Andy was at the top of the chopping block. So I remember having that conversation with Scott Gimple, and he was, I love the characters a lot to me, but I understand that like he has so much to work with, and little old Andy is just whatever. But he talked in depth about the character and was like, we brought him in at the Savior's compound, and we took him out at the Savior's compound, and we felt that was full circle for him. I really stepped back, and nobody wants to die in that show, but man, I was just so grateful. But yeah, I got to set and talked to a few of my friends, and my friend Jordan, he'd gotten the call. But yeah, one by one, just started.
What was the cast of that show between, Andrew Lincoln and Norman Reedus? I mean, what an unbelievable cast, huh? I mean, you had a chance to really work with those guys up close.
I was very fortunate, and people had kind of mentioned this to me, and I'm, very grateful to have my character. Every time I got to set, you always look at the call sheet, and every once in a while you get a good name in there, or a top name, I should say. And I was very fortunate. Every one of my scenes had, my day 1, I was toe to toe with Andrew Lincoln, and day 2, I was, on top of cutlets, choking them out, sitting in the shade,
yeah.
Norman Reedus all day, thinking, man, I watched Boondock Saints, and unreal. Hold on one second. Whew. I got my dude just bothered.
Oh, what kind of puppy is that?
He's a beagle.
Oh, I have a beagle Shih Tzu, so I'm in the same. Yeah, very unique mix.
I got an interview, buddy.
Yeah. What's his name?
Oh, this is Jonesy.
Jonesy.
As in,
Hi, Jonesy.
in Indiana.
Well,
So.
Oh, welcome to Sound Off with Sinkoff, Jonesy. Glad you're joining us.
He's excited.
I know it's boring. It's boring to you. I get it. So yeah, you had you shared some amazing screen time with these guys. And how were they to you? Jeremy, because I love this interview because it's raw and it's real. Did you feel at times like I'm pinching myself? Like, I can't believe
every 30 minutes, they kind of scare you with the NDAs, the non-disclosure, no pictures on set kind of thing. And, I remember sitting there we were at the Alexandria, one of the porches. I'm sitting there, and there's Andrew Lincoln, Norman Reedus talking to Greg Nicotero about the day. And I just kind of snuck in a shot, and I just remember it. Like, I didn't show it, I didn't post it or anything like that, but like years later I saw that, and I was like, man, I remember that. Like, just sitting there just thinking how wild this was. Because, I was, I remember being overseas and seeing like posters for Walking Dead walking down the street, and I was like, man, that's pretty cool. Like, I was a part of that, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
And of course, Nicotero, a director, makeup, special effects guy. I'm a huge George Romero fan. He was a big part of Day of the Dead, did the makeup for that, and he's done a ton of movies. I met him at where I met you at the Providence,
Rhode Island Con.
the Rhode Island Con. Yeah. He's great, and he's got a lot of stories. He was probably fun to work with, and he directed some of your scenes, right? Or
yeah,
some of your episodes.
I'd say a good half of the episodes I did, Greg was the director. Michael Satrazemis was also there. He was great. But yeah, those days were really fun. I remember kind of just seeing some of the chaos go down. I remember it was season 8, episode 1. We're in a field, and there was dozens of actors, extras, cars being moved around. sun going down. There's a little bit of chaos, but I remember watching him work, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Like I just tried to stay out of his way, but they were like literally moving cars and filming at the same time. So,
and for me, like just and one of the things, I'll give you some inside baseball, Jeremy. When I launched this podcast, obviously a real estate agent now, but my past is sports, so this is a sports themed podcast. But I've always been enamored with zombies and pop culture and things of that nature. And I think one of the reasons why, for me, The Walking Dead was so good is because it was like, it wasn't in front of a green screen. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like it was real. It was raw,
And
right?
will
I mean,
say
and you
that,
saw that.
yeah, I
Yeah.
will say that, like, as an actor, when I got to sets, like that satellite station where I'm holding the head, that is like out in the middle of nowhere. That's a real satellite station. We really shot there. There was no cell service for miles. It was out in the middle of nowhere, and I loved it because it was just like you literally walked onto set and you were in the apocalypse. So
It's
it was dirty,
unbelievable.
it was sweaty, and it was so much fun.
We got to. I want to show you the head again because it is just. There we go. It is just an iconic scene. Now, tell me about this head. You're holding this head. This was Nicotero's head.
This was, in the previous scene, we had 3 lined up on the ground, and I remember one of them was Johnny Depp's head from Pirates of the Caribbean. And the only reason I knew that, and I found that out later, was because it was on some kind of cool, TMZ type thing. But I do recall this head, which I had to hold for about maybe 2.5 hours, just kind of doing the set. That thing weighed probably 15 pounds, and my shoulder, which I've had multiple surgeries on, was hurting that day. But it was so worth it. I didn't complain. It was so much fun. But what I loved about this head is, a lot of people ask about it, but it was so detailed that like if you were like, they don't just build it just to hold it. They build it in case they need to smash it. So if you were to break that thing open, it would probably look as if, it might have been a real head. Who knows? But it was very, very cool to,
and it's funny because when I tell some people I'm having Jeremy Palko on, and I was like, he was in The Walking Dead, and I go, he's the guy that held the head outside of Negan's compound, and they're like, oh my God, that scene. Dude, such an iconic scene.
I appreciate that. Yeah, there are certain cons where people, like, I can see they're coming up to me because they can't quite tell. They just see Walking Dead guy, and I'm never offended by it. There's a billion characters in this show, and they come up and they see that shot or the one with Daryl breaking my arm, and sometimes the true fans know. They're like, oh yeah, I remember that scene. So.
Jeremy, we're going to get into your art in a minute here, but being on that show and you were, memorable scenes. And as you said, in with sort of the main cast, did that open some doors for you being on that show? And cause acting is so competitive. It's so difficult. It's so tough to get gigs.
I think anyone on that show kind of ultimately affects them in some sort of positive way. I mean, it's on your resume, which is always, just great as an actor. But, the amount of people that I have met or reached out to or crossed, social medias with, it's this umbrella of just, being part of this family of, not only cast and crew and, but the fan base is just, it's awesome. It is really awesome. And I know you asked me about the cons, and that kind of led to, I do travel every once in a while to do Walking Dead events, but now that I am an artist kind of thing, I've been able to cross those kind of paths right now. So it allows me to audition and be an actor as well as, kind of start traveling the con circuit again.
And here we are hanging out at a con.
Yep.
In Providence a couple of years ago. You mentioned, how cool are these to go to for you?
Man,
going to these cons?
God, they're so unreal. I remember kind of the very first con I ever did was, in fact, the Rhode Island Comic Con. And I hadn't been on The Walking Dead yet. I had been on Vampire Diaries and Bloodline. and a friend of a friend kind of thought, hey, I could, I'm an agent. I would love to see if, you want to come up to the show. And, it was a very quiet weekend, but I was sitting next to the entire Sons of Anarchy cast, which I was obsessed with, still am to this day, one of the greatest shows. So that opened a door to a world where, for instance, I remember meeting Ryan Hurst for the first time, and I was so starstruck the first time I met him. And fast forward 8 years later, like I've seen Ryan a handful of times, and then he got on The Walking Dead, and then we crossed paths at other kind of events. And so, yeah, it's this weird little world of like, I mean, I was on a bus with Lou Ferrigno talking about, lifting weights one day, and, flying home next to Joey Fatone. And yeah, it's this fun little world of, the idea of celebrity is such a big thing. And, every time I'm at these things, I do get, like I met Kiefer Sutherland once, I get a little starstruck, but it's becoming less and less, I found, but it's still such a trip to go to these things.
All right. So now you also do your newest sort of passion project is art by Palko. You're quite the artist. This is one of your and I messaged you this. This is one of your pieces you did, and I bought it at the Rhode Island Con last October, and it's prominently, no joke, Jeremy, prominently displayed in the lobby of my office.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and everyone asked me, what is that? Where did you get that? So tell me about how you got into painting.
Man,
and I'm going to show you some of the,
I get excited
share some of your works.
about it. Like I really do. It's the weirdest thing. Like this is one I do pinch myself about. It's like literally, I recently turned 40, and I had never thought about painting a day in my life. Never thought about it, never picked up a paintbrush, never had any inclination to paint. And then COVID hit, and everybody was kind of just sitting around twiddling their thumbs. And I remember painting just out of sheer boredom one day. And I enjoyed it, and I put it on my social media. And I swear if it weren't for The Walking Dead, like nobody would have noticed. And kind of one at a time, people started reaching out to me saying, "Hi, can I purchase that?" And I was kind of like, "Sure," And I was introduced to like Venmo and PayPal, and I just kind of started, painting one thing at a time out of just kind of expressing myself. And humbly, fast forward, 4 years now, I've probably painted over 10,000 pieces, ranging in sizes from 4x4 to much larger ones behind me. But I found myself being very proud that every single piece I do is one of one. There's no prints, there's no duplicates. Everything, it's
awesome.
It's just a hobby that is kind of, taken over my world, obviously. But like I have health insurance now because of painting, and through acting, it has definitely taught me more than, I realized. But yeah, it's become my obsession. I do it like 90% of my time. I'm either painting or with my dog. So between auditions, which has been wonderful. So,
Jeremy, had you painted before? Like you did?
No,
you have to have an art. I'm looking at like your R2D2 thing, right? You see on the screen. You have to have some artistic talent. You just said I'm doing this during COVID.
Yeah, I updated my art too. Like you got an older one now, but I see. I got bored one day and I added a million little things. But no, awesome. I've never painted. And we were talking before the show, and like I have like 17 art shows coming up. So I paint, and I literally go to shows, and people kind of, kind enough to pick up some pieces. And yeah, like it still blows my mind how much I love doing it and how I've never done it before. So yeah, hobby turned into just a complete obsession.
And I'm gonna put on the screen here your website. Give us the website and tell us a little bit about it and how people can purchase items there.
I do have a webpage, artbypalko.com, and that is just the easy place to go. And that has kind of a little bit about me, a little bit about my background, but it has a link to my art it connects to a Square site, and I try to update that as often as possible because I pretty much paint every day, and so like every week I do my best to have new stuff on there. And again, I pride myself in everything being one of one, so I always tell people, if they see anything they like, please know it's the only one out there. And obviously my social media, my Instagram, I keep everything up to date. But I think if you click on the art link, it'll scroll down.
Yep. I'm just showing everybody. You see the screen there.
And my good friend Jose made this. I wish I had his website offhand, but man, I believe it's on there.
So we click on art.
And I believe that's the link, yeah.
Probably go into your stuff. Yeah, I mean, so Art by Palko. There we go.
So yeah, if you click on those, click on any of those.
Explore my store. Here we go.
Explore my store. I've never actually seen that or read that, but that sounds funny.
So yeah, this is just all of your stuff here, which is awesome. There's your R2, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I got to update the website, unfortunately, but
so this is really cool, and anybody can go there, and you could check out your art. And can somebody request? Has anyone requested like Walking Dead artwork?
I'm working on a piece right now that I think I'm gonna bring. I'm doing an event at the end of the month, which is in Sonoy, where we shot The Walking Dead. Haven't told anyone yet what I'm going to do, but I've had a few requests and commissions, and I've come to believe that I'm not really an artist. Like I say that hesitantly because, like I said, this is a new obsession, but I do love it, and people have been very responsive to it, which has been a very humbling and awesome experience. But I did have people say, "Hey, can you like paint my grandfather holding my cat?" And I'm like, "No, I cannot do that." So I've had to be very kind of specific. Oh, I forgot. This is a piece I'm working on right now.
Oh, wow.
Kind of an R2 kind of a droid thing. But I kind of tell people, I'm like, I appreciate the interest, but, look at my work and we'll go from there. But I've started to get into commission work. But I, unfortunately, will turn stuff down if it's just not something I think I can make. So I would hate to disappoint somebody, truly.
So artbypalko.com, you got the website. We're putting it on the bottom of your screen there. All right, we got to, because we're going to touch a little on sports. Because this is Sound Off with Sinkoff. We got to have a little bit of sports here, or my peeps will get mad at me.
I was ready.
Are you? Oh no, are you breaking out some ridiculousness?
So I'll give you the short story. So I was born in LaGrange, Georgia. All right, and up until I was about 5 years old, I moved to Seattle, Washington. So I grew up, I was Justice, I was Ron Gant, I was Terry Pendleton, Fred McGriff,
Glavin and Smoltz.
I have one baseball glove my entire life. I played for 25 years. I still play softball. I have one glove I got when I was 12 years old, Tom Glavin. So
you still have it and still use it?
It's still in my car. Like, it's just always in my car for some reason. So I grew up a diehard Braves fan. I remember my dad getting my first baseball hat, a professionally fit, which was huge.
Yep.
Atlanta Braves, right? So I grew up from the start a Braves fan. And then, I moved to Seattle when I was 5. My dad worked for the Wall Street Journal. So we grew up in the Seattle area. And then Griffey happened.
Oh, boy.
Yep.
Love it.
Got my old school Griffey, my Mariners. But that's when, as a kid, I started playing baseball. Like, I played, like, for AAU national teams. I was I wouldn't say great, but I got to be a part of great teams. And so, I traveled a lot for baseball. But growing up in Seattle, we were Mariner fans. I got to, I met Alex Rodriguez, and he signed a baseball for me. And Jay Buhner and Ichiro. And I met Edgar Martinez. So this is the only sport I am dual fans, because now I live in Atlanta. I literally live 2 miles from the stadium. And I just love baseball. So I'm a diehard Seahawks fan. Falcons are growing on me. But when it comes to baseball, like, I love my Braves, and then I will always be there for my Mariners.
All right, so the Mariners are playing the Braves in the World Series. Probably wishful
Oh,
thinking,
I
although
thought
maybe
about-
not.
I have.
Who are you
thought
rooting
about-
for?
That is tough. That is really, really tough. And I've hated that question because Seattle needs it. And I would be so happy. But like I said, I live next to the stadium for the Braves. And so I remember I moved here in 2019. So I was here for the World Series run. And that was just, so much fun and energetic. And the town feeds off of it. But we are a little spoiled, man. Like the Braves, like we're always good. Always good. But that means nothing in the playoffs now. It really means nothing. You can lose to the Phillies the first round, But, yeah, I think I would choose Seattle. In the 7th game, bottom of the 9th, like, it better be historic. If it's like a sweep, boring, but that's tough.
Yeah. Well, I'm an O's fan, and we've suffered for a very long time.
So good, though. Like,
yeah, I tell people, and I put on Facebook, when the Orioles hired Elias in 2018 from the Astros, him and Sig Meidel are the two sort of brain trusts that put that Astros team together that made their runs. And Elias has proved to be Jeremy, you look at our draft picks from when he started to now, he has not missed on any number one, first round draft picks, which, in baseball, you look at the number one overall picks the last 10 years, like 2 of them are in the majors, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. And what he has done with Gunnar and Adley, it's just crazy.
The baseball draft has always baffled me with the AAA system. So I kind of as soon as spring ball comes around is when I pay any attention, really.
Yeah, it's fun being an O's fan. It's been a long time coming. I'm so excited.
Yeah, you guys.
And you guys are Atlanta is really tough. There's no question. I think it would be awesome. Dude, I'm telling you right now, let's throw this out there. If the O's play the Braves in the series, you're getting us tickets and I'm coming down and we're going together.
All right.
I'm not staying with you, dude, but we're going to go to the game together, because I said to my wife, I said, Francine, since I've, been an adult, twice in my life has my team been in a championship. In 2002, Maryland was in the national championship. I was 31, but I was doing television at the time in Norfolk, Virginia. And then in 2018, my Capitals won the Stanley Cup. But, I want to go, it's expensive, but like, I want to go to one of these games.
Well, what's great is like, I remember the World Series was here. We were looking at tickets to go. And of course they were first sold out, but then they had the standing room only. And for the World Series, standing room only was $1,200. And not only parking went from $45 to $250. Now I live, like crazy. I said, I walk to the stadium and back every once in a while because it's a good hike, but it's, nothing too bad. But I mean, it'd be fun just to go to Truist Park and walk around because everything is so, the atmosphere is just cool.
All right, before we let you go, what do you're obviously still pursuing the acting thing. Hopefully we see you in something soon, right? We hope.
I sure hope so. Like I said, I had some good stuff in the works, but as an actor, you can only do so much until someone else has to make that decision. So I'm very hopeful.
You wait for the phone to ring, right?
Pretty much. That's why the artwork is so much fun to do in the meantime.
Well, Jeremy played Andy in The Walking Dead. Check him out. You can watch The Walking Dead on Netflix, and you can check out Jeremy's art by Palko. Jeremy, I want to thank you so much for coming on, man. I know we met a couple of years ago, and we've been in touch on Facebook, but I really, truly appreciate your time.
My pleasure, Brian. I appreciate it, man.
All right. That is Jeremy Palko of The Walking Dead, and an artist as well. So I want to thank everyone for watching and listening to Sound Off with Sinkoff. Until next time, this is Brian Sinkoff saying have a great day, and we'll catch you next time.